Go ahead and call the committee meeting to order. I'll call the Cuyahoga County Finance and Budget Committee meeting for Monday, March 28th, 2016 to order. Clerk will please call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent. Mr. Hairston.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schron.
Here.
Ms. Brown. Here. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Any public comment related to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Before us, we have the meeting minutes from January 21st, 2016. If there are any amendments, I'll entertain them. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Motion's been made and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting minutes of January 21st are so approved. Before us, we have two matters referred to committee. If the clerk will please read the first item.
Resolution 2016-0072, authorizing a contract with Point Blank Solutions in the amount not to exceed $3 million for software, maintenance, monitoring, and support services for the Justice Matters and DocuPoint case and document management systems for the period 2/29/2016 through 2/28/2021.
Very good. Who's here to present? Yes, sir.
My name's Andy Moles. I'm representing the county prosecutors. Good afternoon, council. Here to seek approval to renew our existing maintenance contract with Point Blank Solutions for the period commencing 3/1/2016 to 2/28/2021 in the amount of $600,000 annually and $3 million over the duration of the contract. Point Blank is the sole source manufacturer of our case management system, which was installed since 2009, so they've been supporting it for 7 years already. Since that time, the impact of the system has been dramatic, saving the Cuyahoga County roughly $11 million per year in regards to the case management system. The system's been used by over 350 county prosecutors and staff, 110 law enforcement agencies, including roughly 8,600 officers, roughly 2,380 defense attorneys, and dozens of court personnel as well.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Mr. Miller, Mr. Gallagher.
How does the $600,000 per year cost compare with what we're currently paying?
I'm sorry?
How does the $600,000 per year cost of the contract compare with what we're currently paying on an annual basis? Is it the same? Is
It's
it
the
higher?
same.
Is it the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And with the system being 7 years old, has the system been upgraded? Is it being upgraded on an ongoing basis, or is it getting to the point where it's going to be needing to be upgraded? What's the status on that?
Great question. It was upgraded actually a couple months ago. So we go through a normal assessment of the software. We usually have one upgrade per year, depending on how many changes we have. In fact, we just had a release of new changes that took place, which took 3/17 on St. Patty's Day. We did a new release, but it's consistently upgraded based on changes, modifications, interfaces that we needed. But yes.
So this system is still very much up to date and in good shape. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher.
What's the out clause? How many days?
Out clause of the contract, we can terminate the
30 days.
30 days?
30 days.
Thank you.
This is a 5-year contract?
Yes, sir.
Did you say that we're saving $11 million a year?
Yes, sir.
Take me through that.
Well, number one, when this first started, 2009, everything was paper.
I'm well aware.
Okay. So everything has been basically elevated to electronic forms. So even the police officers out in the agencies in the suburbs, everything is electronic. There's no more delivery of mail, discovery. Everything has been automated for the prosecutors to see, in fact, even the courts, when they pull up their discovery items when they're presenting grand jury cases. All of that has been electronically and has reduced costs significantly since it's been put in. I took over 9 months ago, so I'm still kind of picking up the pace on it, learned it, understanding it, but it's done some great things and provided great tools for all of, not just the in-jail, the sheriff's department, the prosecutor's office, the defense attorneys, because now we can deliver automatically discovery items to the defense counsels. We can provide body cameras, which is a automated way of cutting the DVDs, but now we've actually automated that, where the prosecutors can actually visualize and see the camera footage as well.
So all briefs filed by county prosecutors are electronic
Yes, sir.
in every court?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I still don't see how that adds up to $11 million. Is there something you can provide to us in writing that would get us to the 11 million? I don't want you to have to go through, I'm sure you're not prepared right now, but.
I do have it. I can deliver it to you.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah. There was a reduction in time of delivery of incident packages that I mentioned to by the officers. Reduction in time from the rest of the indictment. Reduction of grand jury support staff for work duties. I'm just kind of reading this off, but I can provide this to you.
Sure, great. Okay, that's okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Ms. Brown?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Andy Moles?
Mr. Moles. What's the standard increments or previously for the terms of the contract? How many years?
It's a 5-year agreement,
Well, you
contract.
said we've been in this agreement for 7 years prior, so. can you-
7 years, yes. Previously, in 2009, there was a 4-year contract, and then there was a 3-year contract, and my chief of staff wanted to go 5 years.
And why, was there an extension? Why the extension in the years from, you said from 4 to 3?
That's
Now
correct.
we're at 5, so
That's correct.
we went lower and now we're,
I have a representative from Point Blank that probably historically has a better idea of the background in this.
I like to know.
There's a convenience clause, or the county can get out at any time they want. I believe her intent was to lock in the price for 5 years.
So for the price point is why
That's
we
correct.
selected the 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Schron, then Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Who else did you compare on the renewal at this point in time as far as other products?
We haven't. Because of the sole source agreement and the proprietary of the software, we did not go out.
You're not telling this panel that this is the only product that can solve this problem for you, are you?
As of right now, yes, sir.
Is the only one you've chosen, or is the only one out there?
It's the only one out there that can support everything that this system can do.
So we have the representative from Point Blank. I'd be willing to bet that he knows of competitors out there that, because there's not an industry out there that there isn't some competition.
There are competitors for other products. You would have to totally replace the product.
No, I understand that way that goes, but the same thing whether you're doing it with an ERP system or you're doing it with any other kind of software product, to say that there isn't another product is what bothers me when we hear people coming in, basically locking into a single point of contract for 10 years. Because you're telling us 5 years plus another 5 years. And I'm not saying it's not a good product, not saying it's a bad product, but I can tell you right now that it would be unusual for any industry to not at least consider what other alternatives are out there in the marketplace. And you're asking the taxpayers not to consider other alternatives in a RFP out there to consider what goes out there, because I'd be willing to bet the competition would probably come in and say they have better features, functions, and benefits, even though they might not. I'm not trying to say they do, but it is hard for me to believe that 10 years in a path that one sometimes tends to get comfortable in the relationship, complacent in a relationship, and I'm not saying, again, that's being done, but when you don't have the free enterprise system competing for time, value, property, everything about that, it just always bothers me when the taxpayer doesn't even get, we're gonna have a blank slate for 10 years where we're not comparing product.
So there are competitors.
Let me ask I'm sorry, if whomever's speaking, please speak into the microphone.
And put your name on the record, please. so
And
we
please,
can-
yeah,
Sure.
please make sure the
My name's
mic-
Joe Wong. I'm with Point Blank. So there are definitely competitors in the marketplace, but we're not aware of any competitor that has certain features that we do have. So, for example, one of the features that we have is the ability to connect law enforcement with the prosecutor's office. So we're not aware of anybody that offers that solution. On the other end, the solution that you have defense attorneys be automatically connected as well with the system. So we're not aware of any competitors that offer that. There are competitors that have systems specifically for the prosecutor's office, but not the integration for this integrated justice solution that we provided.
So yours is the only product being used across the entire United States in every one of these applications?
No,
I didn't think so.
no, that's not what I said.
Okay, that's my point, is that.
No, I
you're saying-
said, that's right. As I said, there are definitely competitors that we have. But in terms of the integrated justice solution that we've provided, in terms of adding the over 100 law enforcement agencies that are connected to the solution here in Cuyahoga County, they have the ability to connect directly into the system, as well as over the 2,000 defense attorneys that are connected through our solution. We're not aware of anybody that has that technology that allows for people to do
Is
that.
that custom code that you wrote for this application, or is it an off-the-shelf product that you,
It's an off-the-shelf product.
so that anybody in any other jurisdiction in Hamilton County or any place else in the state of Ohio, we could probably find that your system is being utilized for
That's
the
correct.
same reason?
That's correct.
And
As a matter
so,
of fact, since we introduced our product, no other person has ever been selected. We have about 40% of the Ohio market right now.
okay, and how about the Indiana and Illinois and all that?
We just focused
We,
on
we've
Ohio.
focused primarily on Ohio. So people like the Ohio Attorney General, Franklin County, as well as a lot of small counties use our solution.
And again, I'm not chastising your product, I'm chastising the process that doesn't bring other, when we do a no bid contract and sole source, as we just heard, it always gives me some pangs of concern that our county drifted into those kind of relationships. And we got in a lot of trouble with that, and when you start doing sole source, it just gives me some concern. And I assume the $11 million savings number, that was probably something we used 5 years ago?
That was based on a study after the first 4 years of the analysis.
And so to still be using that, I'm sorry, but to be using that today with today's technology, that's like saying, what was the ATM savings when banks went that way, and what was the savings on airlines when we all got rid, I mean, that
It's
just,
a savings compared to not using a system.
but nobody's
That's
gonna go
correct.
backwards. So what's the savings from last year to this year by using your software?
Well, I don't have an analysis comparing last year to this year.
Analysis that I think is relevant, and what's the savings versus any other third-party product that might be out there? I realize that you might have to write some custom code to do the things that you just mentioned, but that's, that's what competition is all about. And
Sure. And I'm sure you're aware that to implement a brand new system would be a multi-year, multi-million.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And that all gets into the spirit of negotiations,
Yeah, sure.
as we all know how that goes out there.
But that's our benchmark. So we're beyond that hurdle. So the savings is really the difference between a whole new infrastructure and a maintenance contract.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
From where we're going. But to use to Mr. Gallagher's point of $11 million, you would think that was the way it was presented, that's last year's savings to this year's savings. And the reality of it is, no one's going to go backwards in technology. I mean, we're not going to eliminate the ATMs at the bank, and we're going to talk about the savings of the tellers and all the things that we stepped out, and the savings of the airline where we've lost the travel agents and all those things. So we really need to talk about what can your product do from last year to this year versus competition, I think is really what we need to hear when we're talking about savings, because it's going to be very tough for you to put that number on the books, I believe, in relationship to it. Because if we adopt even your third-party competitors, they're going to show a significant savings if we use 6-year-old data, I would think. Is that a fair statement?
No, because one of the key savings is in jail day reductions, and that's the area that we focused on, that the integration that we have that our competitors don't have. So that actually is one of the things, and that's an ongoing thing, because, it would take many, many months to be able to process information from law enforcement. We totally integrated that and cut that time down significantly. So that is a clear advantage that we still have to this day. Delivery discovery. So, sure, there were reductions, there are jail day savings. Those are ongoing savings. And sure, if you take everything back out, but to say that you've reached a certain point of efficiency and now want to constantly fine tune that efficiency, it's a matter of the people fine tuning the use of the product. So yeah, the biggest bang of the savings is the initial implementation. The fact that it got a 6-month return, internal rate of return, payback time period when the system went in is really the biggest benefit from it. It's much more difficult to eke out savings on an ongoing basis. You're absolutely correct.
And then at some point, there should be, I hate to say it, but I don't want to negotiate on behalf of anybody buying it, but there should be some savings at your end, or the cost should start to drop in relationship to your cost. It would seem to me at some point, after you're not having to sell us, you're not having to install us, you're not having to do all those things, you're just on the maintenance side of it. I don't mean to diminish it.
It's actually, the market is very competitive for computer engineers and technicians, and the rate of their increases is much greater than the rate that we've seen here. And we're constantly investing. We're having, we do multiple releases. We have brand new versions coming out. We're constantly investing back in the product. So, it's a tremendous amount of investment to keep these products current, up to date, and to keep adding more and more features to support the new things that are being done, like new investigative capabilities, new link analysis, all those types of things. That's all going right back into the product. So the cost has actually gone up from our perspective. Luckily, we've been able to grow our market share throughout the state to be able to help continue to improve those costs. And the benefit of working with organizations like the Attorney General and others has really helped us improve the product for all of our customers.
I assume there's no connection with the Point Blank range that's on the west side or the east side of town?
No.
Okay. I assume
Or
you just
the-
happen to have the same name and,
Yeah, or the
similar focus.
body armor company either, so.
yeah, thanks.
Sure.
Mr. Miller.
I see that the contract expired on 2/29/2016. Has there been any lapse of service or any problem because of that expiring?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And is there a need that we need to pass this legislation quickly to get it done at the next council meeting, or can it go for 3 readings?
Well, I would like to get it done. We've been working with their team of people. I know there's some training that we still continually need from the prosecutor's point of view. They supply that training as well. Right now, we're because of the past contract has expired, some of the training courses that they provide, I shouldn't say don't exist, but it's basically part of the contract. And by renewing this new contract, then we would get some additional hours that we can put forth to the training.
And in the response to Councilman Tron's last question, you mentioned about blink analysis. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Sure, is link, L-I-N-K, link analysis?
Link.
Yes.
Oh, link analysis.
Link analysis,
Okay.
yeah. So we're working with several investigative agencies as well, and that's something that Cuyahoga County has really expanded upon. It allows you to just data mine all the information and really provide analysis on interplay between people and their organizations and different crimes that they've been involved with, and it shows it graphically. It just provides more investigative tools for people to be able to use.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions. You mentioned that this software interfaces with other agencies. Do we charge an access fee to those other agencies to have access to this data or interact with it?
No.
Whether it's lawyers, with the defense lawyers or any other agencies, we don't.
No
Is that customary? I guess now talking to the Point Blank folks, do other political subdivisions charge? Do you know if the counties charge user fees to other agencies?
They do not. There's an obligation on part of the prosecutor to be able to provide discovery. So this is a tool that they provide. They have to provide it. So it'd be very difficult, in my opinion, to get the defense bar to pay for that. And the other's for law enforcement to be able to submit it. Sometimes they have to ask their vendor to enhance their system. Mm-hmm. And so there'll be some cost that sometimes is shared or absorbed in that regard. But there's no cost that are typically charged.
Okay. You mentioned other agencies, law enforcement agencies. Does our county or the Fusion Center use any of this data in doing their analysis? Do you know if they're a user?
No, they are not.
Okay, I'd encourage you maybe to reach out to them.
We've been trying, yes, sir.
Oh, you have been trying?
Yes, sir.
And they've been resistant to, you're offering free data for them to do analysis, crime analysis, and they've refused?
Yes, sir.
Any reason?
Not that I've heard.
Okay, well, I'll,
They just ignored you.
Mike,
Both. Both.
Okay, I'm done. For FBI, do they have access? Do they use?
No, they do not.
They do not. Have we offered it to them as well? And they have,
I don't know if the FBI really needs
Okay.
this type of data.
I guess they can get it through the
They
Fusion
can get
Center
it, that's correct.
if the Fusion Center chose to participate.
That's correct.
Okay. I look to my public safety chair. I think he knows where I'm going with this. I'm not going to touch the $11 million. I think that's been beaten to death. I think it's old data that you maybe not want to use in your presentation. Second reading suspension, I believe, would be in order. My question is, since we're sitting here late March and this contract expired a month ago, why is it only now being brought to us?
One of the reasons was we didn't necessarily, our past fiscal officer forgot to submit a CSR for the TAC approval. So we needed Michael Young's group to approve it before it got on the board.
So do you have the chronology of this as to when it was originally? I mean, obviously, you knew this contract was expiring 4 years ago at this time. You're new, but do we know why it just?
I believe it was submitted back in December, but I don't know exactly what transpired between December and now.
Submitted to the county.
Correct.
Okay, if I can ask the clerk to inquire with OPD as to why this took so long to get to us, I would appreciate that. Okay, any other questions on this issue? All right, hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to move resolution 2016-0072 to council for second reading under suspension of the rules at our next council meeting. Is there a motion?
Also move.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Motion's made and second. Any discussion on the motion?
I would just like to see what other vendors you at least had on your list, even though you didn't submit it for an RFQ.
Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries. It'll be on the next agenda for second reading under suspension.
Okay, thank you,
Great,
Councilman.
thank
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You can provide that to the clerk?
Yeah, great, thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the next item referred to committee?
Resolution 2016-0073, authorizing a contract with InfoPro Computer Solutions in the amount not to exceed $510,000 for information technology services for the Buckeye Case Management and Computer Network Systems for the period 4/1/2016 through 3/31/2019.
Great, thank you. And if you could please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm Uta Vilfroy, the Court Administrator for the 8th District Court of Appeals. We're presenting our contract for our case management system. It's called Buckeye. It's one of the few appellate court case management systems in Ohio. The total amount of the contract, which is for 3 years, is $510,000. It is a performance-based contract. There's no maintenance retainer type fee that is due. We simply pay for the work as it is authorized by the court, as it's provided by the vendor. The contract begins on April 1st, we hope. The hourly rate being charged is well below market value. InfoPro is the developer of this system. It's constantly being upgraded as the Court of Appeals has its needs change. Our biggest change was going to electronic filing at the request of the Clerk of Courts. And that has been, as a result, we've got a lot of interfaces going on with Cuyahoga County's criminal justice information system, and our interfaces with the Supreme Court to submit our quarterly reports has been upgraded as they've changed their requirements. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have about the contract.
Okay, I'll start this time. to my left, Mr. Hairston, Ms. Brown, any questions? Ms. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanting to know the prior contract, was this an extension or renewal?
This is a new contract.
A new
Yes, the
contract?
previous one was also a 3-year contract, and it will expire on the 31st.
And the amount of that contract
The amount is the same,
and the provider?
same provider.
Okay. And was this an open bid?
No, this is a sole source. As I said, the Court of Appeals owns this software, but they were the developer of it. And because their rate is so much below market value, and because there are so few options actually within the state, the Supreme Court of Ohio has an appellate court management system that they provide to the smaller counties that cannot get funding, for the smaller districts, I should say, that cannot get funding readily from their counties to have this type of service, and they are actually looking at InfoPro to help them to develop a case management system.
And then you said that you touched on the hourly rate, but the question that I have is you mentioned the work is billed as authorized. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, let me give you an example. We recently had a time change on our Supreme Court reports where the length of time that a case can be considered to be still pending but not overaged changed. So our reporting system had to be updated so that when the computer system looks at the data to report to them, we know which cases are overaged, which cases are still within the timeframes. So that change was authorized. They gave us an idea of approximately how many hours. We tell them to go ahead. There is no such a thing as outside the scope. The Court of Appeals determines what the scope is.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, this is basically, as it indicated on the contract, an amount not to exceed. So,
Yes, and
okay.
not to exceed,
All
yes.
right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gallagher?
Actually, not even a question, but for the committee, going forward, would this not be the ideal situation for all of our courts to own the software, determine the scope, basically manage and deliver a product underpriced, and not under-delivered, but underpriced, which we never hear. We never hear that when we're dealing with the courts. So you provided us with a model that I think we need to start talking about, because the argument from the other side, many other courts, is they just can't do it. And here we have someone that is doing it. So lesson learned, and as we move forward, maybe something of discussion purposes for us to talk with the other courts with. So I worked there, so I know it works, and I know the folks that do it, and to provide the service they provide, the cost at which they provide it, I think more is a loyalty-based situation.
Yeah, our vendor really does not do a lot of court work anymore. They have moved over into the academic area, but because we were one of their first large customers, they've still, work with us. So we're happy not to have to go to a big box solution that has not been customized for our operation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schron?
Just so I understand, when you say you own it, did you actually write it?
The code was written back in the 80s. I don't have the paperwork to substantiate exactly what the relationship was or how that occurred at the time, but if our vendor goes out of business, we own the code that we have right now, and we own all the data. There's no conflict with the vendor. They're not going out and marketing this. If they get the Supreme Court, for instance, asks them to write a system, they'll write a new system. They won't just take our system and retrofit it there.
And the operating system back in the 1980s has been...
No, we've changed
As soon
operating
as you change
systems
operating system-
numerous times.
Okay.
In fact, just recently.
Okay, what
upgraded.
operating system you're running on?
Right now, it's under Oracle.
Okay, all right, and so you actually you still have to license the Oracle product in
Yes.
order to run that as the under.
Yes, we have network concerns that have to be, especially with the interface with the County Justice Information System, and the data center provides some of that connectivity for us.
Okay, and then the relationship then with Buckeye is a third-party administrator, is that what they're doing, or are they just upgrading the original code?
They maintain the system as well. They provide other network-related services to us. For instance, we were having some server issues, and they've been working with our systems manager to rectify the server issues for us. They developed a mobile version of our case management system that judges can use on their Microsoft Surface Pros when they are out at conferences, when they're on the bench, that type of thing. So they do a little bit more than just maintain the system. They also do, as we find our needs change, they also do additional software development for us in that regard. But it's all part of our so-called Buckeye system.
Putting my entrepreneurial hat on, if a Court of Appeals here owns it, is it better than other Court of Appeals softwares that are being utilized throughout the state?
We think it is because it meets our needs. Every district's a little bit different. The 8th District, which is all of Cuyahoga County, is one of only 3 in the state that has a single county in its jurisdiction. Columbus and Cincinnati obviously being the other 2. And some of the other districts are smaller, but they might have more county clerks that they have to deal with. We have a big advantage in that our clerk of the appellate court is also the clerk of the trial court. 90% of the cases that come to us on appeal originate from Cuyahoga County's Common Pleas Court and its divisions. So, I'm sorry, I kind of lost track of your original question.
I didn't get there yet.
Okay.
That comes next.
Okay.
In the entrepreneurs, to follow up on Mr. Gallagher's point, if it is that good and that appropriate, have we offered it to sell to other counties like a Franklin or a Hamilton, if it's recognized as truly the best system in the state of Ohio?
I don't know how many other districts would be interested in purchasing our system if we even tried to think about. I'm just trying to get a 3-year contract for maintenance through OPD. I can't even imagine what I'd have to do to try and get, become a seller or a vendor of software. But as I said, the Supreme Court is looking at having InfoPro develop for them a system that they would provide to the smaller counties.
I just the government assets. A lot of times you get into developing things, whether they be NASA or a lot of other places, and they do end up finding they've got intellectual property that does have value that can be moved out of the marketplace. Perhaps gentlemen like this would become distributors of this product if it's that good into other markets and segments out there.
Well,
And
that's
you
an
don't have to
interesting-
actually sell it. You just license it and get
License
moved out.
it, okay.
Yeah. You just move it out to a third party.
Well, I would take that under advisement and see what the judges have to say about that, but that would not be my decision, certainly.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, I assume the county actually owns it if you're saying that's the case.
I believe you would be correct, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned before that that there was a change in the amount of allowable time for when a case is considered current and on time. And my question is did the allowable time go up or go down?
Interestingly enough, it's actually on original actions which are filed in appellate courts. So a writ, for instance, previously was considered to be overage if it was 180 days or longer without a resolution. And they've changed the amount of time from 180 days to something over 400 days. They've also changed how they're looking at those numbers. Our current Supreme Court reporting is a sort of a snapshot in time. What is it right today? Not trending over time, like what have you done in the last 6 months? What have you done over the last year? How does this compare to the previous year? So the new thinking would be that at certain points in time, a percentage of those types of cases would have had to have been completed. So let's say you're at the 3/4 mark, 75% of your cases should be completed and have a disposition at that point. As you get closer to the drop dead date, 90 to 95% of this type of case should be completed. So they're trying to make those reports more valuable to people so that you can take a longer view over time. Are you doing better? Are you doing worse? And not just a snapshot that says on this date you had 12 cases, on that date you had 24.
Okay, and my second question is that at today's meeting we considered two systems for case management, and my question is how is the appellate court system significantly different that we couldn't think about having one system that would operate on both levels, or could we?
I think your first question would be jurisdictional, which I think that's a hurdle that constitutionally you would have difficulty getting over. As a practical matter, the trial court, which the prosecutor's office represents, the criminal cases are in the multi-thousands. A court of appeals will hear maybe 1,400 to 1,500 appeal cases, of which only maybe 2/3 are criminal cases to start with, and then 100 original actions. And we're the busiest and largest appellate court, intermediate appellate court in the state of Ohio. So I think those are different. The prosecutor's office is very, very transactional oriented. Court of Appeals is a very much different animal. There is some interface in that when the prosecutor's office has a case, a criminal case that goes on appeal to us, and they represent the state of Ohio, they electronically file their brief with our clerk, and then we get that brief and any other information that's submitted, evidentiary information, transcript, perhaps criminal transcript of the trial, is transmitted to us electronically. So there is some interface, which assists their office and certainly assists our office to have that digital information as opposed to all the paper.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Just a couple questions from the chair. So 510,000 over 3 years. What's our history been? How much have we spent previously on this contract?
This contract is about the same amount as our previous 2 years of the 3-year contract. The biggest change became the increase when we went to electronic filing. So literally, the entire way that the Court of Appeals does business, as opposed to having the paper and now having electronic, had to change. And so a lot of our internal processes changed, how information gets to the judges, to the law clerks, back to the front office and the bailiffs, and how we process motions, how we process appeals, how we process original actions, all changed dramatically. So the last 2 years of our previous 3-year contract are the same amount, approximately $170,000, $180,000 a year. Previous to that, it was a little bit lower.
So you envision this is basically an as needed contract.
Yes.
So do you envision, having gone through all of that work up to this date at those rates, that you're going to continue at the same spending level or same requirements?
I will tell you honestly, because we have had more change just in the last 5 years. I've been the court administrator for the last since 2002 with the Court of Appeals. I think that we're going to maintain this pace.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned
we were very pleased that we did not have to have any kind of an increase.
Okay.
I think we're going to be able to keep the costs contained pretty well.
And you mentioned that we own the software. Do we own the source code?
That's my understanding.
And where is that source code currently housed?
It's housed at the Court of Appeals in the courthouse, and we have a backup offsite as well.
We do, we in a vault that we own, or that we
Yes.
license?
Yes.
Okay, so we truly then do own the source code?
Yes.
Okay. I noticed the date of the new contract is April 1st, which is prior to our next council meeting. Do you need this as a second reading suspension?
We would definitely request that if it's possible. We began this process back in November. The Court of Appeals has essentially 2 major contracts, our legal research contract and our case management contract. So, we try to do these as quickly as we can, but, the requirements change, the forms change, and this contract, unlike our previous one, we spent a little bit more time with the law department, going back and forth, making sure that the contract met the requirements that the county was comfortable with, as far as insurance and as far as indemnification and that type of thing.
And after all that time from November, it was determined that everything as is fine?
Yes.
Okay, and you originally submitted this, the courts originally moved this out to the county back in November?
November or December of last year, yes.
And so here we are, March, having a first reading.
Yeah.
or second, well, we had a first reading last week.
Yes, that's correct.
We need to do a better job of, legal needs to do a better job of turning that around for you.
Yeah, I will be very frank, it was not legal that was the problem, it was OPD.
OPD, okay, well, we need then to work with OPD to turn that around quicker. Okay, any other questions? Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to move resolution 2016-0073 to full council at our next meeting under second reading suspension. Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of resolution 2016-0073 being brought before council for second reading at our next second reading suspension, our next council meeting, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, that motion carries. That'll be on the next council meeting.
Thank you very much, we appreciate it.
Very good. Moving on, any miscellaneous business? Hearing none. Any other public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Just a reminder, our next committee meeting will be April 11th, at which time we will hear the 2015 results as well as updated financial information for 2016. Okay, no other business. This meeting's adjourned.